Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kodash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of the great millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect. This brother Yerushalayim coming back at you with another video through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kodash. Name of this one is, we are in the final stage of the money manipulators' plans. Right, the plans of the World Economic Forum. All right, and I'm going to start off this video by going through and reading from the book Satan's Angels Exposed, page 181. Right, how the power persuaders control the wealth. This area is this paragraph is going into the Federal Reserve. All right, so without further ado, let's go into it. The Federal Reserve System. Now, what about the Federal Reserve System? It is neither federal nor reserve, right? Because it's illegal. It actually was unconstitutional, right? We actually put a private bank to run the affairs or manage the affairs and the finances of a whole country, a so-called country, which you know America is a corporation anyway, all right? And this is where it all stems from, right? As Mayam Shellbauer said, he said, give me control of our nation's money, and I care not who make the laws. Why? Because if you have the money, you can influence those who make the laws. That's exactly what they did, right? It is neither federal nor reserve. Louis T. McFadden, who for more than 10 years served as chairman of the Banking and Currency Committee, is reported to have said on the floor of the House of Representatives, "We have in this country one of the most corrupt institutions the world has ever known. I refer to the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks. They are not government institutions, they are private monopolies." They have a stranglehold, all right? They have no competition, all right? Which prey upon the people of these United States for the benefit of themselves and their foreign customers, which are all members of these banking families. All right, the Rothschild, the Rockefeller, the DuPonts, the Oppenheimers, and so on and so forth. All right. Okay. This may or may not have been the case at one time. Today's Federal Reserve Board does not outwardly seem to be a group of world criminals, which is what they are. All right. Esau, Edom, because most of these elite bankers, they have the tribe of Amalek. All right, which is the lead tribe of Esau, Edom. Right, which is a vagabond and a criminal when you go back to the Genesis, the book of Genesis. I believe it's around the 5th chapter. They talk about Esau as a vagabond. All right, he's a traveling weapon. Okay, Tubal Cain. All right, so it says but rather a group of responsible bankers attempting to manage the money of the United States at a desperate time. So much power, however, exists here that there's always the potential for the wrong group to gain control of this board, which we know that was from the beginning, right? Right? This was the plan, all right? And from there to control or manipulate the nation or to lose it through foolishness, which is what they've done, right? This area says a warning unheeded. In 1776, the United States secured its political freedom, right, from Great Britain and so on, right? Congress was given the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof before they were using the British currency, right, pound sterling and so forth, right? Alexander Hamilton and Robert Morris were successful in convincing the new Congress that this phrase was not to be taken literally, but only as implied or suggested powers, right? This enabled the Bank of North America to be founded in 1781 along the same lines of the Bank of England. So this was one of the first deceptions, right? They created this Bank of America, right, which is the same bank that that basically bailing in, taking in customers' money, right, and performing bank bailings right now, and people losing their money, right, which was predicted in the Simpsons, the cartoon The Simpsons, all right, Bart Simpson and so forth, right? And the owners of this Bank of America were the same owners, same group of people who own the Bank of England, all right? So you see that? So America really didn't change hands. Same people running England, running America, right? Thomas Jefferson wrote, there was scarcely a king or would-be king in 100 who would not, if he could, follow the example of Pharaoh. He didn't really use Pharaoh, which means these devils liken themselves, they are likened unto Pharaoh, right? He gets first all the people's money, right? Which is what they do now, even in Trinidad. The finance minister now made a decree recently that you no longer need two forms of picture ID to open up a bank account. Why they doing these things right now? Because they want you to they want everyone in the country, right, in the world to have a bank account and put your money in there. So when the time comes, when the system is, the orchestration of the system crashes, right, they want to take your money and bail in the banks, leaving you helpless, right? The scripture says what? Wisdom is a defense and money is a defense, right? Wisdom is a defense, right? So Ecclesiastes 7 and 12, let's get up. Ecclesiastes 7 verse 12. So they're going to take away your defense. Ecclesiastes 7 verse 12. For wisdom is a defense and money is a defense. But the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. So without your money, right, which we know in the physical realm, money answereth all things, right? Ecclesiastes 10:19, it says what? A feast is made for laughter and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. Yeah, money gives everything, your clothes, your house, your car, all these things. So they know this, and knowing this, they intend to take advantage of you. This is why they targeted your money, right? Because most Jake don't have the faith it takes, to separate themselves from the money. All right. Okay. So first of all, the people's money, then all their lands, which is what they have planned to do. You'll own nothing and be happy. That's what the World Economic Forum preaches. All right. And then make them and their children servants forever. The borrower is servant to the lender. All right. The borrower is servant to the lender. Are we not drifting to this position today? Well, now more than ever we've seen this. All right. Now more than ever. In 1789, George Washington appointed Alexander Hamilton as Secretary of the Treasury. In 1790, Hamilton urged Salakia. Just jump there. Right, Salakia about that. Let me read. In 1790, Hamilton urged the Congress to charter a privately owned corporation as the Bank of the United States. Right? This private bank would have the sole right of issuing currency for the United States. Jefferson strongly opposed this, but George Washington signed the bill on February 25th, 1791. Because he was a big Mason, Freemason, right? This part reads, a den of vipers. General Andrew Jackson recognized the evil of this money system and addressing bankers said, you are a den of vipers. I intend to rout you out. Right? In a vetoed message printed to the Senate on July 10, 1832, President Jackson said in part, it is neither necessary nor proper for the government to transfer its legislative power to such a bank, right? It's going against the Constitution, right? And therefore unconstitutional. It is to be regretted that the powerful and rich too often bend the acts of government to their selfish purposes, right? Because, you control the money, you control the laws, legislation, right? Wicked laws, all right? It's interesting to know that under Jackson's leadership, the national debt was reduced to zero, right? Because he was a man, he understood what was going on. He understood that, these devils were ruling through debt, right? Through lending, right? The borrower servant to the lender. This is why all of us are borrowers to the state. When you look at the debt clock and you check the citizens' debt, you'll find out that. Go to the U.S. debt clock, you'll see that clearly, all right? This was the only time in our entire history that the U.S. government did not owe 1 cent. All right. Some claim, all right, it was the money barons who created the depressions in 1890 and 1907 in order to install a money system to their liking, which is likely what they did. All right. All right. Indeed, the supporters of the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 did promise that it would stabilize the dollar. Right. These are the promises they make. right? America would never again see the dollar madly fluctuate, nor, they said, would the dollar lose its purchasing power, right? Which was all a farce. These devils, they pegged the US dollar to the petrol, right, using Saudi Arabia, all right? But before that, they were using electricity. As the elder Malcolm has said, in his video, right? He basically, he saw, in an old fair that, there were buses and cars hooked up to electrical power outlets charging. So they had electricity a long time before, all right? But they went to petrol, all right, to prop up the dollar, all right, based on oil price, and therefore they control the oil price in the world. They control the US dollar, right? They keep the US dollar afloat, all right, which is all, the whole US system is all a giant Ponzi scheme anyway, all right. So it says President Wilson recognized the dangers, said a great industrial nation is controlled by its system of credit, right? System of credit, borrowing, right, debt. The growth of the nations, therefore, and all our activities are in the hands of a few men who have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled governments in the civilized world. No longer a government of free opinion, no longer a government by conviction or a vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men. Right? And this was their plan in the first place. Right? It goes down into the war books, but I'm not gonna go into there. So when you go to the book of Habakkuk chapter 2, all right, and it goes down to Esau Edom, right? I'll read from Habakkuk 2 and verse 5. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine doctrines, he's a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe is him to him that increaseth that which is not his? Right, this is what these devils did. Taking depositors' money, right, and using it, making millions and billions off of it, right? How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. So they take your money, you put through the banks, they multiply it, your own money, right, and then they lend you back, the state, all right, under high interest rates, usury, all right, and then all the nation's so-called citizens, have to bear that burden. So in other words, all nation citizens are slaves. All right, it says how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. Thick clay. Let's see what that thick clay is. All right, thick clay.
Strong's H 5671. Avteet.
Weight of pledges, heavy debts. Right, America, the USA is still owing, these devils, the banks of America, debt, debts from since the Civil War. They still couldn't pay off that. All right, and now they're coming to take your little hard-earned money, right? All through the wicked laws. Now let's get a video here. I got this from Elder Malcolm. Let's pull this up. Let's listen in a little bit here.
This year's conference is how the dollar-denominated monetary order is being challenged in several ways. Accelerating de-dollarization led by the BRIC nations, dollar debasement and devaluation with a potential total collapse of the system, a looming global reset, and central bank digital currencies. And my next guest, Lynette Zhang, has been one of the first to sound the alarm about all of these potential threats. Lynette, very good to have you with us.
Oh, Michelle, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Lynette, you have been warning about this since 2009.
Yes.
And Lynette is, of course, you're the chief market analyst at ITM Trading. You have almost 60 years of experience in the financial sector, including as an investment banker with Larsen Lehman and American Express. So you've been in the trenches.
I have been in the trenches.
The challenge, Lynette, is on what of the impending threats we should focus on, considering your work is, in a word, terrifying, but very important that we get this information out there. I also know that you're warning about how in the near term, not too distant future, our money in the bank is at risk of being co-opted by the banks in the form of a bail-in as opposed to a bailout. Before we get into that, and again, as I say, a lot of...
All right, your money gonna be bailed in, right? Okay. What does that mean? All right, they're gonna take your deposited funds in the bank, right, and bail out and bail in the bank. Seize your money pretty much. All right.
Ground to cover, but why don't we start with your major thesis, and that is that we have reached the end of the currency cycle.
Yes, because what people don't realize is that everything has a life cycle. I'm at a different point in my life at 68 than my granddaughter who's about to turn 8. And currencies are no different than that. And there are recognizable patterns that we can see all along the way. But there is not one doubt in my mind. I mean, first of all, officially, there's roughly 3 cents in purchasing power left out of the currencies, out of the.
Imagine there's only 3 cents of power left in the US dollar. 3 cents. You can't buy anything with it anymore. All right? Pretty much a dollar could get you. Like people lucky if you get some candy. All right? It's a mess. The same thing happened with the old pagan Roman Empire. The money was corrupt. Right? Which is what this US dollar is. It's corrupt. All right? And that's the reason why it's collapsing right now. It's an artificial money. All right? Now let me get the book of James, chapter 5, right, verse 2. It says, your riches are corrupted, and in fact, let me read from verse 1, James 5:1. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, it's worthless. Right? All that fiat currency. And the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped together treasures for the last days. Right? Behold the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields. Yeah, we reaped down, we did all your work. Right? We put our money in the bank, right? And you use that, right, for your enrichment, which is kept back by fraud. Crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth, the Lord of armies. All right? And this is what's happening right now as we speak. All right?
Left out of the currencies, out of the original dollar's worth of purchasing power. So what happens when you get to zero? You have to go negative. They have to take your principal. And haven't they been testing that since 2009?
All right, your principal is the amount that you invested. All right, you're going to take it. You're going to take it. All right?
Well, and Lynette, as we discussed earlier, every single global reserve currency has lost its status. So it's only a matter of time, unfortunately.
Only those backed by gold surviving, like the Russian ruble, is staying afloat because why? It's being backed by gold now. All right? It's being backed by gold. But this is the book of Ezekiel. Let's get the book of Ezekiel, chapter 7, verse 18. Salakia. Ezekiel 7 and 18. It reads, verse 7 and 17. All hands shall be feeble, and all knees shall be weak as water. They shall also gird themselves with sackcloth, and horror shall cover them, and shame shall be upon all faces, and baldness upon all heads. Why? Because money answereth all things, right? They shall cast their silver in the streets, because it's going to be worthless, and their gold shall be removed, and their silver and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of the Lord. Yeah, because they're not going to have any. They're going to replace it with what? Digital legal tender. All right, CBDC. All right, they shall not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, because they're going to give you food that they think is enough for you. All right, because it is the stumbling block of their iniquity. All right, let's go.
Of time, unfortunately, before the dollar gets dethroned. Before we break down how this collapse happens, I want to touch on one of the points that you've made recently, and that is that our deposits in the bank are at risk of what you say is a bail-in, which has been sanctioned by the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010, which said no more bailouts. 2008, we had governments bailing out the too big to fail banks. Now it's time for the depositors to step in. So break that down for us.
Well, for one thing, people have the assumption that when they make a deposit, that's their money, but it's not. When you make a deposit, legally, you are loaning your money to the bank. And in 19...
So you hear that? That's a deception. Because most people think when they make a deposit, it's your money. Right? It's not so. She's saying that, by law, all right, these devils, they own your money. When you put it in, you choosing to lend the money to the bank. And this is why, at this point, you shouldn't have much in the bank right now. All right, whatever you have, take it out. All right? It's just plain common sense. But anyway, all right, let's continue here.
1995, they enacted Regulation D, which legalized and enabled the banks to sweep your deposits into sub-accounts that are in the bank's name, and then use that as collateral for loans. And, frankly, most of the revenue that the banks generate right now is trading revenue, according to the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. So that just enabled them to reduce their reserve.
In other words, they're trading your money and making money and making interest off of it. All right, and they give you a 0.1%, all right, of that income they generate with using your money. All right.
And to use your money to gamble with. You don't even realize it because it's invisible.
Well, in the post-Dodd-Frank...
Why you said gamble? Because they invest in high-risk investments, all right? In Trinidad, they had like Clico Investment Bank, who basically, a lot of people lost their money, all right? The government came and bailed them in. Hindu Credit Union was another one, all right? Because they were investing people's money in high risky investments and getting back big returns. But eventually, it failed. Right, and a lot of people lost their money. A lot of people died, got heart attack. All right, they couldn't take it. Well, that's coming back in our worst case scenario, because they're gonna bail in. You're gonna lose all of your money, not even some. Some people recovered some, because of deposit insurance and whatnot. They did. Listen, it's gonna be a lot of people gonna perish just hearing that their money is gone. All right.
Well, like you say, you're not simply a customer or depositor. You're actually legally classified as an unsecured creditor.
Exactly.
And legally, anyone that carries a balance over $250,000 by law can have the money directly taken from their account without permission to help the bank stay afloat if need be.
And they'll take out if you have less money than 200,000, they're gonna take your money anyway. All right, they're gonna take your money, and if you have $1, they're gonna take that. $5, they're going to take that. $10, $100, $500, they're going to take it. Right? Because what they're coming with now is something to want you completely defenseless. All right? Completely defenseless.
Correct.
Why should we be concerned, though, that moment could happen sooner rather than later, that the banks may need to resort to this?
Well, number one, if most of their revenue is generated by trading and not by lending, and remember right now, central banks are raising interest rates to fight the inflation that they cause by their reckless money printing, right?
Right, every dollar that they print is worth less than the one that came before. All right, that's why you have so much hyperinflation, all right, going on right now. The prices and everything's going up. You also have shrinkflation, the size of the packaging going down and the price staying the same. All right? Right, the size of the product going down, decreasing, and the price staying the same. Shrinkflation. Go check it out. All right?
Absolutely. And, and by the way, even though this says this is prop money, what are the ones that are issued by the governments? It's garbage.
Right.
Gold is real money.
It's rubbish. Right? The Lord said the gold is mine and the silver is mine. That's real money.
Right? Everything else is just an imitation of it. But what we're seeing in the banking system is as they raise the interest rates, the system is falling apart because it's really been based upon a never-ending compounding of debt. And so the interest rates have been in a steady decline since the early 80s, and now they're anchored at zero. And central banks, when they tried to raise the rates in 2016, It was a big fat fail into 2019, wasn't it? They tried to raise the rates and then they couldn't. They dropped them all the way down. Now, with what they've done with interest rates, we've actually broken that, 40, 50-year trend line? That's significant. Anytime there is a pattern shift, you don't even have to understand what that means, right? But when there's a pattern shift, what that's telling you is that there is change afoot. And the bigger that pattern shift is, the greater the change that's coming.
Yeah. I've actually always wanted to have money rain down on me. Not quite like this, but, had to be more specific in my wish there. But fun and games aside, Lynette, this is very serious stuff. Because if you have over $250,000 in the bank can come and take it. And it's not an
Bank will take less than that, as I said before.
Abstract concept. We saw that happen in Cyprus in 2013.
Well, what they did in Cyprus, too. The first bail-in took everything. They ignored the deposit insurance scheme, which is...
Right, and the deposit insurance scheme, is basically, as she's going to explain it, it's just a control and organization that is set up, basically, for the different banks and financial institutions to ensure deposits up to a certain amount. Right, from loss, right, for customers to reassure them and have faith in the financial institutions. All right, but as she said in Cyprus, they didn't even take on the deposit insurance. They took everything from the customers, and that's exactly what they're going to do now. Right, that's exactly what they're going to do in this time. Okay.
The U.S. was put in 33 to get people comfortable with making the deposit in the banks, right? So they actually enacted that, and at the same time, they separated investment risk-taking banks with deposit-taking banks. And then in 99, they eliminated that separation. So in 95, they enabled Reg D, which allowed them to sweep those funds underneath. And then just a few years later, they allowed the merger of risk-taking trading banks with deposit-taking banks. And now Wall Street really has full access to your deposits.
Right, full access. They can take it. They can take all the deposits and use them for risky investments. All right, which lose big. They gain, and then after, when they lose, you lose. All right. So they basically getting all the benefits and you stand in all the risks.
What would be the inflection point, though, that would make the banks need to do this?
Well, first of all...
How does that play out? Like, paint that picture for us.
Well, it is a crisis, and a crisis of confidence. So if you attempt to run on the banks, well, they're going to stop you cold. And if we go back to what was happening in 2008 and 2009, people were losing a lot of confidence because of that crisis, right? But I think that what's really interesting, using Cyprus as an example, because that's really where they tested it. Number one, you can see where the French and German banks had been investing a lot of money in Cyprus. And then all of a sudden, in 2011, they took that money out. And so it looks like this peak like that. But the average person, the saver, this is what they call sticky money. So in other words, you're going to make that deposit and you ask yourself, when was the last time you changed banks? You don't. So that's really what makes you vulnerable, because you have confidence in the bank. You have that relationship.
Well, 2 points there.
And that's why the Lord said, don't store up your treasures where moth and rust that corrupt. Right? People store their treasures, which is their money, in the bank. Right? Where moth and rust corrupt. Right? These fucking Edomites. Right? In control of the system. They control of the laws, basically to destroy you, using them to destroy you on previous laws. He's going to Isaiah, the 10th chapter, verse 1. It says, woe to them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness, which have prescribed the laws, the financial laws, to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people. They're robbing from the poor. This is real wickedness. All right? That widows may be their prey and that they may rob the fatherless. All right? This is why the Lord said, don't make any agreement with them. All right? It's not by chance. Okay? Psalm 94, verse 20, it says, shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law? They gather themselves together against the soul of the righteous and condemn the innocent blood. And when this beast, when this BEAST starts to speak, all right, you know, through this social credit score system that the World Economic Forum is pushing, all right, it's going to be even more draconian. All right, it's going to be even more draconian. All right, because they're going to be bringing the CBDC, which we know is already coming here this year, more than likely. Some people saying by June. All right, in Trinidad, they're going to roll this thing out by the end of this month, the first day of March. All right, and let's get Habakkuk 1 and verse Habakkuk 1 and verse 3. It says, why dost thou show me iniquity and cause me to behold grievance? For spoiling and violence are before me, and there are that rise up strife and contention. And this is what they're doing when they do this and seize people money. They're going to be sedition, right? They're going to rebel against the authorities. People are going to go on a murdering streak. Because why? They're going to be hungry. They're going to be thirsty. They're not going to have any covering over their head. They're going to take your housing. All right? It's going to be a madhouse. All right? Right? It says, therefore, verse 4, therefore the law is slacked, and judgment doth never go forth. For the wicked doth compass about the righteous. Therefore wrong judgment proceedeth, justice be perverted. And that's what this whole economic forum is about. All right? It's a perversion. Okay? It's all designed to make you subservient and to make you bow down to the image of the BEAST and receive the MERK, the C-hip, the R-fit C-hip. All right? So with that, pray this lesson was edifying, you know, just to enlighten you of what's going on, what's taking place right as we speak. All right? Till next time, shalom and a bad bubble.